Chapter 3: Navigation in the Age of Exploration. Do you ever go on trips with your family? How do the adults in your family find the places they want to visit? Do they write down directions? Do they use maps? Do they look for landmarks along the way? Do they have an electronic device that tells them where to turn? Early European explorers didn't have most of those things. Most sailors in those days stayed close to land and looked for familiar landmarks. However, this would not work for explorers. They could not look for familiar landmarks because they were sailing into unknown waters. Early explorers did have some maps, but they were not always accurate. So how did the explorers keep track of where they were? They had several tools that they might have used. One of them was a compass. A compass is a very simple device. It is just a little magnet that sits on a pin so it can spin. The pointer on the magnet points north. Back then, nobody knew why. Now we know it's because Earth has a magnetic field, which is strongest at the poles. Magnets are attracted to the magnetic field of the North Pole. Using a compass, a sailor could figure out which direction was north. Plus, if he knew which direction was north, he could figure out south, east, and west. That was a big help. Explorers also used the stars to keep track of their position. Sailors in this day used two gadgets. One was called a quadrant. The other one was called an astrolabe. The details of how these gadgets work are complicated, but the basic idea is not. The idea is that you can keep track of your position on Earth by keeping track of where certain stars appear to be in the night sky. If you can tell where the Sun, the North Star, and other key stars are, you should be able to figure out where you are on Earth. Others may have kept track of how far they had traveled using a method called dead reckoning. Here's how dead reckoning worked. A sailor had a piece of wood that was tied to a rope. The rope was knotted at regular intervals. There might be a knot every 5 feet. The sailor would toss the piece of wood overboard while the ship was sailing. When the wood hit the water, the sailor would turn over an hourglass. The sailor, or the captain of the ship, would then watch to see how much rope was pulled out of the ship and into the sea. If the ship was going fast, it would quickly leave the piece of wood behind. It would pull many yards of rope out of the ship before the hourglass ran out. If the ship was going slower, it would not pull as much rope out. Then, the person would count how many knots of rope got pulled out of the ship before the hourglass emptied out. If you have ever heard of a ship's speed referred to as knots, this is a forerunner of that measurement of speed. A ship's captain could use dead reckoning to make an estimate of how fast the ship was moving. Then he could estimate how far the ship would travel in an hour or a day. He could use a compass to know which way he was heading. He could put all this together to make an estimate of where he was.